Dawn kind of takes everything about cliche teenage slasher horror movies and throws it into one game.
For better or worse, like I don't know if they're trying to be self-aware about this. Like what we played, we were sort of guiding two characters through this apparently haunted mansion, and they were the two most annoying characters I've ever met in any video game. But they're that typical super scared, but also really stupid horror movie protagonists, right?
Well, yeah, every single line of dialogue that came out of their mouths was almost, you know, as expected, cliche and cringeworthy to that point. But at the same time, you know, I do want to give it the benefit of the doubt, wondering whether or not that was the whole self-aware. Like, if the game knows that these characters are so cliche and they're playing up to their stereotypes in order to entertain the person who's playing the game. But that being said, you know, the tropes they're all there. Like, you know, you've got the serial killer who was chasing the two teenagers or young adults. And then you've got the jump scares as well, which the game seems to have filled plenty in the level. So what did you think about the scares, Dan? Did you actually get any scares out of it?
I don't think the scares were really that scary because I was kind of just fighting with the mechanics the whole time. I mean, one of the main things is you have a torch and you aim the torch in the world by tilting the PS4 controller itself and using the light bar sensor to direct where the beam is going. And it's so counterintuitive and so awkward to be doing these things while trying to sort of be tense and be scared that it really sort of detracts from the experience. And the level is so bright that you don't actually need the torch at all. Like, this isn't as dark as, say, PT.
Actually, speaking of the motion control, I feel like that they try to work that as much into the gameplay as possible, which kind of struck me as a little strange. It really broke the immersion, like you said. When, you know, my character in the cutscene was speaking about how scared she was, and I was like flipping the controller back and forth, and her head was just like going everywhere. It looked really strange to me, and I'm not even sure what purpose it served in the game.
Yeah, it looks like every time you're trying to interact with an object, they have to bring up the prompt to be like, no, this is how you do it. You swipe the touchpad, you move the controller like this, or you do something that you just like, that's not usually how I interact with things, and it really sort of pulls you out every single time it happens.
And as far as I could see, when you pick up an object and rotate it around, a lot of the time it actually didn't achieve anything. Like, most of the time you could just tap, you know, R2 to pick up an object and off you go. There was no real point in staying there and like flicking it around and looking at it.
Exactly, like in a game like LA Noire, when you can sort of rotate a single object and look at it, you're doing it because you're a detective and you're trying to find something. But when you do it in Until Dawn, there's only one way you can actually move the object, and you have to just go all the way and then release it, and then you're through to the next step. You know?
That being said, though, I was pretty impressed with the choices you had to make throughout the game. Sometimes, you know, the character had to decide whether or not she was going to harden up and go for like the scary choice and chase and look for her missing friend, or say like, I'm really scared, I don't want to go in there. And I thought that was really interesting.
We were playing next to each other on different stations though, and I noticed we picked different choices, but still ultimately ended up at the same place at the end. Yeah,
that is true. Well, maybe, you know, when the final game is that, we'll be able to see more branching storylines in Until Dawn. But until then...
We'll see.